And we are live. You know what, guys? Welcome to the Let's Talk Fishing video podcast. My name is James. I'm going to be your host. With me tonight, I have Frank Lepera. Frank is a bass tournament angler from the great state of Michigan. I have so many fond memories of that state. I mean, it's just one of the coolest places I've ever lived. Definitely one of the cooler places I've ever fished. It's such a variety. And even in the bass world, there's endless variety of things you can do in Michigan. So, without further ado, how are you doing tonight, Frank?
Doing great, Jay. How are you?
I'm doing great. And what tournament series are you associated with?
Cash for Bass. Actually, in a year's, we'll have over 110 tournaments a year, and I'll do about anywhere from 55 to 60 of those myself.
Wow. So you have a job, you fish 55, 60 tournaments a year, and you don't sleep.
Well, let me clarify it a little bit. We have night tournaments that run Monday through Fridays, and they're from
That takes time.
6 to 9. They run from 6 to 9. And and it's a great deal. It really is. And then we have Saturday tournaments inland lake, and then especially for Lake Sinclair, we have Saturday and Sunday tournaments right after our opening day tournament and Monster Quest, and then we get into our regular series, which is 6 on Saturdays and 6 on Sundays.
Wow, how much that just sounds like so much fun. So you have tournaments all over the state?
Well, yes, actually in Southeast Michigan and Southwest. We opened up a series last year in Southwest Michigan that takes care of some of the lakes on the west side of the state, around the Kalamazoo area. And, as I'm sure you know, there's some great waters over there.
Oh, my goodness. Like, I used to fish Diamond Lake, Klinger Lake, Corey Lake.
Yeah.
All those lakes in Southwest Michigan, just up from the Niles, So I lived in South Indiana, that was just really close to, geez.
And we started out last year, and we had a great turnout from there. And I think it's even going to be even better this year because of the series that we have there. We also have a Thursday night series on the west side of the state this year too.
That is so much fun. The dog fight.
Yep, Devil's Lake is included in that, and you're talking about some phenomenal fishing.
I always call those the dog fights. The Thursday night. A lot of the bigger tournaments actually came out of those Thursday night tournaments in places like Tennessee and Kentucky and Texas, of course.
Yeah.
A lot of them,
and we've been doing this for quite a while, and we have over 360 members that fish our series. So it's a great, really opportunity for people to come out and use their skills and win some money doing it.
So how could a guy get information about this Cash for Bass?
Well, the best thing to do is you can email us. Or the best thing to do is go right to our website, cash4bass.com, and it has all the information there. Our contact names, all the lakes that we fish, times, dates, and the price that we charge. We do an 85% payback too. So I mean, nobody does that. It really is a great. We do it for the fishermen. We really do.
So is this Cash for Bass? Is that correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I put that up there so that people could see that and perhaps contact you about this.
I've been getting a lot of calls, actually, in emails. I went through a number of them today while I was waiting to go on the air, and there's a lot of interest. And to be quite honest, I think that has a lot to do with the influx of college kids and the fishing that they have going now. And it's just brought it to, and actually I was involved with that with Michigan State University. I started their program there way back when it was just the Big Ten. And it's grown quite a bit, and I'm really proud of that.
That is something to be proud of, Frank. That's something to really be proud of. And also to be involved with such a successful tournament series. I've worked with a lot of guys who've who started tournament series, and some of them have just taken off. Well, like the kayak stuff, since I've been doing this, I think there's 4 or 5 new kayak series just since I've been doing my podcast. It's, even Bassmaster now has a kayak series,
Right.
And there's big bucks in the kayak series now. And now, how long have you been doing Cash for Bass?
Well, Cash, I've been involved with it personally for the past 3 years.
Okay.
It's been Cash for Bass has been out there for, I'd say, about 15 years, and recently I've been associated with them and running the series. I do the Thursday night and Saturday series on Lake Sinclair, and then we have other directors that take care of the other days.
Wow. So something else you're involved in that I'm very excited about is Grant Rods. I know that you're a Grant Rods pro.
I am.
And you especially like their spinning rods. What is your favorite Grant Rods? And I'll tell you mine.
Okay, well, depending on what I'm doing. I mean, there's the way he makes his rods are, you can have an all-around rod, obviously, but when I'm doing a tournament series, Matteyerstein for my drop shot, I love doing it with the Matteyerstein medium, 7 foot. Also like the Cuda when I'm doing my crankbaits. I like the Cuda rod, and I'll use a spinner bait for the Cuda with the Cuda rod. And the Grant Slam is another one that I like using for spy baits. Actually, I just like the tip.
Oh, really?
It's a phenomenal. It's different, and obviously, I don't. When you fish with spy baits, there's a certain technique that you have to use. One, you have to get a really slow ratio reel, very slow. But it's the tip action because of those little hooks. You have to be that tip is so important so that you don't lose that fish. And I've been catching them in 20 feet of water with with that, and I'm with great success.
Wow. A lot of people have bought the spy baits and they've given up in disgust because they don't understand it. David Swinside, who's a great friend of mine, I talk to him quite often. He puts out so many videos to educate the people how to use this bait. It's different. And you sound like you've learned, get it out there and just let it sit. Pull it a little bit, let it sit.
Yeah, you can't. It's hard to find a 5-to-1 ratio spinning reel, but they're out there, and just it can be until you start catching fish. That's when you finally it clicks. Okay, this is how slow I have to fish this bait, and it makes a difference. It really does, and you just have to. It's one of my favorite techniques to do first thing in the morning on some of these inland lakes and Lake Sinclair to try that spy bait.
And you know what? The Cuda EXT has such medium light, 6'6". I've talked to you before. I like my 6'6".
Yes.
And with Grant rods, they have backbone, they have sensitivity, and you can whip that thing out there. I also use my Cuda medium action 7 foot for redfish.
Sure.
And Jim says just horse them things in.
Yeah.
Oh, no, I'm not going to break any rods.
Well, some of the on the Cuda rods, I'll use the lipless crankbait.
Oh, there you go.
One of my favorite ones for Lake Sinclair.
Is that a special one?
Yeah, it is. It's it's the old Jimmy Houston series
crawfish.
Yeah, the crawfish color, and it's especially this time of year. They just, again, you have to move that slow, but I'll tell you, they love that color and had great success. Another one is the. This is another color by Strike King crankbait, especially this time of year. It's great for these smallmouth on Lake St. Clair, and
Now, what color is that, Frank?
it's a perch color,
Okay.
actually.
Oh, nice. And how far down will that go?
This one will go to 6 foot because this time of year they're moving in for feed,
Sure.
so they're not out in the deep water. So you're going to be in that anywhere from 8 to 6 foot area, and they'll start feeding.
They sure will. They sure will. One thing I like about the Grant rods is they're so sensitive that when you're using a Lippler's crankbait like you showed, or even what was that square bill that you had there?
Yes, it was.
You can feel it. Boy, I still have. You can feel this.
You can,
and if any deviation to that at all, or if that just stops, and it's still coming in,
right. But the thing that I like about it is you can feel the action of that lure. But what's most important is you want to be hitting the tips of the weeds as you're coming through. And if you're not feeling that, you're not going to get the bite.
Yes, and also you can feel every time it hits. Every time it hits. If you're using a lesser rod, I used to pick on ugly sticks, but boy, I sure caught a lot of fish on ugly sticks when I was young. It was all I could afford. But you can't feel that kind of stuff.
No. And like I've told people before, you can catch fish on a broomstick, but how many fish did you miss?
Yeah.
If you don't have a sensitive rod?
And I just got a new toy. I am so excited about this thing.
That's a beautiful rod.
This is the new Finesse.
Yeah. Nah, Jim put a lot of work into that, and
He
just
sure did.
no one has the technology that he's put into that rod.
Cork handle right there, just a beautiful cork handle.
Yeah.
And you got you got the reserve power right. Look at this. Look at that.
Yeah, the double lock nut for the reel seat. Yeah.
See, I can't tell you how many times I was using a spinning rod and the reel came unseated.
Right.
Yikes. He sent me something along with this. It says that high modulus proprietary high strain carbon with unique patterns that provides ultra power sensitivity percent total of premium carbon twill, and the design brings you super fast action in addition to all the other features listed. The carbon core addition not only provides strength but ultimate sensitivity and lifting power. Carbon reel seats with Texilum insert and machine double locking nuts, like you said. AAA cork grips. Ultimate. Wow.
I don't know if we can catch it on the camera, but look at the carbon fiber twill. How he is up. You can see it in the rod. It's about 3/4 of the way up from the reel seat, which gives it the strength. I don't know if you can put it up to the. Yes, you can see it. And that's all new technology with him. That's just phenomenal. Nobody's got it. Everybody wants it, but nobody has it but Grant rods.
And look at that thing.
Oh, the titanium eyes? Oh, yeah, for sure.
That is just... I can't wait to get this out on the water, man.
I'll tell you, that medium action would be another good one for the some of the baits that we use here as the season goes on. Some of the swim baits on a ball head jig.
Ooh.
It's that rod that
Pull that up a little bit, Frank, can you?
Sure. Oh. Okay.
I know it's very difficult. Now, who makes that?
Kitech, actually.
Kitech. Ooh,
yep.
Nice.
Yes.
I've heard so much about Kitech. That looks nice. That's a boot tail?
Yes. Yeah. They make some great swim baits for sure. There's a number of colors that I like using here, and
I would put that on the back of a chatterbait.
Yes.
I like my chatterbaits, man.
Well, he's got some great bait casters for chatterbait and spinnerbait fishing too. Grant rods
Oh yeah.
that really make a difference too.
You got any other things you want to show us?
Well, I do have some, and this is if you have anybody coming up here to Lake St. Clair, this guy River Rock Baits. The dark special and the light special, you want to call and you want to order some of these before you come up here, because it's a terrific color in the spring of the year.
Okay, what kind of a?
It's a tube. It's a tube bait.
Oh, a tube. Okay.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
You stupid rig those, or you just put those in tube jigs?
Put them in a tube jig. 3.5 inches, the best size for it, really, this time of year, and they just love it. It's a great color, and tell Robert, that you heard it on your show, and to come up and he'll take care of them for sure. It's a great one, really. It's big. It's really fantastic.
Where would a person find River Rock Custom Baits?
It would be on their website, riverrockbaits.com.
Riverrockbaits.com. Okay, so guys, if you're going to come on up here to Lake St. Clair, a guy who fishes Lake St. Clair all the time just recommended River Rock Baits. Now, what would you be targeting if you're going to be throwing a tube like that on Lake St. Clair?
Smallmouth bass.
Well, of course, smallmouth bass. But what are you going to be throwing at? What kind of structure? What do you look for?
Well, you're going to be looking for weed breaks, is what and rock piles. There's actually a lot of rock piles in Lake St. Clair that are dotted throughout the lake.
Yeah.
And just a lot of guys will actually drift and cast the bait and reel it back in, as one of the techniques. But it's like I said, there's rock piles out there that they're not that hard to find actually once you get your sonar unit going, and when you find a rock pile, fish it.
Yeah. A lot of those rock piles were there to begin with, but also a lot of times the old time ships would carry rocks for ballast. As they would be going in the port, they'd drop their ballast off.
Well, there's funny you should say that. There was a freighter that was stuck, I don't know how many years ago, but they had to unload their coal out of the ship, and they have what they call a coal pile, which during the season that does, it gets active with fish.
I'm sure it does. That's some good structure right there.
It is.
So what else would you tell people to use on Lake St. Clair?
Well, there's different techniques. You know what I tell people? What are you comfortable with? Okay, because you want to fish something that you're used to, something that you're accustomed to, and you got a good feel for it. I've got a lot of guys that contact me from Kentucky, and their favorite after with the River Rock Baits, that's what they've purchased, and they love it. They come up here and they'll go through 100 fish in a day.
Wow, 100 smallmouth bass in a day.
Yes,
that's crazy.
A lot of fun.
Oh yeah, that's the kind of day it's gonna.
Then don't be afraid to throw a popper out there too.
What's the deepest water you've caught a fish on a popper?
I'd say 10 to 12 feet. I do fish deeper. I'll hit the 25-foot range. There's some areas in Canada that are phenomenal for that.
With gin clear water?
Gin clear water. You can see 20 feet down, no problem. You can see the curly cabbage that we have, and you can actually see the fish come in and hit your bait.
That was one of the coolest things I've ever seen, fishing in northern Green Bay, mm-hmm. On the Door County side. The further north you go, the clearer the water gets, and hook it into a fish in 20 feet of water, and and watching that smallmouth bass come up like this from 20 feet of water, coming up and do a backflip for you. And
Yeah.
wow, I wasn't even like, oh my God, I'm gonna lose her. That's just so cool.
Yes. Yeah.
It's one of the, and I too used green pumpkin tubes back then.
It's a good color.
Actually, Dave Maurice from Venom Lures introduced me to the tube on Green Bay when I was out there covering the professional walleye trail. Jim Kalkoff, of the professional walleye trail, hooked me up with. He said, "Would you like to go out and catch some smallmouths tomorrow?" I'm like, "Yeah." And we didn't even get out of the harbor. It was so rough. But they put me on bass all day long, and they got me the confidence that I needed to be able to use tubes. And I bet you over the course of the next 20 years, I can't even tell you how many tubes I sold. Fishing with so many people and just showing them, watch me. If you don't think you can catch fish on these, watch me. And after I caught 6 or 7 of them, they haven't caught any, You have any more of those? Yeah. Now that you ask, I have 200 of them with me. Here's a bag.
Yeah.
Well, that's what you're supposed to do as a promoter.
For sure.
Just like you're doing, the tubes, I haven't fished with them in a long time because, now I'm stuck down south. But there's just so many cool things going on up north. Tubes. Oh, shoot, I have no brain tonight, Frank. Those little things that stand up on the bottom.
Nedriggs?
Nedriggs. I fished with Mike Norris 2 years ago on Big Green Lake, and he went to one spot, and we caught fish on that with Nedriggs nonstop, both of us, for 2.5 hours. And he said, let's go look for some big ones. And I'm like, so are we going to go leave fish to go find fish? We're just 2 guys fishing together for fun. Let's go looking for some big fish.
Yeah.
Because he's the one who taught me that, not to do that.
Yeah, when you Ned rig, you want a sensitive tip, a fast tip, and with a lot of backbone. But it's another one. Like when I like the Matteyerstein for that, actually.
Sure. Well, I was using Mike Norris's Grant rods, because I flew up there and just showed up, just me. Hey. But when you jump in Mike Norris's boat, he's got everything you want. He's got 15 of everything you want.
Right.
I call him the quintessential pro. Everything about him is pro fisherman.
Uh-huh.
Highly recommended guide, guys. Big Green Lake, north central Wisconsin.
Another, and I can't recall the captain's name here, but another thing that we have in Lake St. Clair is some monster muskie.
Oh yeah, Captain Matteyerstein.
That's the guy.
I graduated from high school with him in South Bend, Indiana. I'm not going to tell you what year. Long time ago.
He is he's a phenomenal muskie fisherman,
and more than just a muskie fisherman, he's a great person.
Mm-hmm.
I was a guide for 17 years, and people came back because I kept them entertained. If we weren't catching fish, you better believe I'm not. I'm going to keep working until I find them. I know the water. I knew the water so well. And if I still couldn't catch anything, you got a voucher for a free guide trip. Matteyerstein is going to catch you fish, and he's a muskie fisherman. And he says, "Oh yeah, yesterday we caught 8." There were times when I couldn't put my people on 8 crappies.
No, he's phenomenal for sure.
And he's a great guy. That's the total package when it comes to hiring a fishing guy. And also he uses Grant rods.
That's right.
So
there's some success because of that too, because of the Grant rods for sure. That's how, one of the reasons why he's so successful.
Yes, he trolls with them, he casts with them. And he even jigs for muskies.
How much I did not know that. Okay.
He's using 8-ounce big old plastic things. But could you imagine
I've caught some big ones on my tubes, I'll tell you that.
I bet you have. I bet you, particularly this time of the year, huh?
Yeah, this time and in the fall, especially in the fall.
Okay.
And you're not fishing for them, but you know what? They see something moving along the bottom that looks good to them. They're going to catch one.
Because in this pre-spawn, when I would fish for big bass up in the very shallow water with them jerk baits, I'd hook into a lot of muskies. And also, you'd also catch 4 and 5 pound bass doing that.
Right.
But before I take somebody out to guide them, I'm like, you might not catch anything.
Right.
But if we catch something, it's not going to be 12 inches. It might just be 40-inch muskies or, a 4 or 5 pound bass.
Yeah. It's
high stakes fishing. And you just got to understand that. I don't guarantee fish when I'm fishing the preseason. But that was one of my, that's why I liked it so much. Because it was more like gambling than fishing, because you never knew, but you knew if you got something, it's going to be big.
Yeah.
That's fun. Okay. Somebody wants to come to Lake St. Clair.
Okay.
When is the best time to come for smallmouths if you want trophy potential, like we were just talking about?
Well, this time of year is a great time, actually. Water temperature is a little cool right now, especially with the weather fluctuation that we've had here. We're going to have frost on Wednesday night again. Water temperature, we were coho fishing a week ago on the St. Clair River, right off of the Black River Wall. And water temperature is only 38 degrees coming out of Lake Huron. Ooh. So that has it right. Now on the Detroit River yesterday, the weekend before, it was 47. And because of that dip in temperature that we had a week ago, it was down to 41 again. So it's up and down. We had the moon phase a week ago, full moon, and that brought in the really the monster walleyes that come through Lake St. Clair and into the Detroit River. And but on Lake St. Clair, they're going to start feeding right now, because in the 40s they're thinking of spawning. It'll be the next moon, but they'll start feeding now. For the spawn. So they'll be in that 7, 8, 9, 10-foot water area for sure.
Right around Easter, I used to always drive out to my friend's house who lived in Holland, Michigan, and cast right there in Holland. They have I don't know if it's a river or just a harbor that comes in, but we would cast it and we would catch 7 and 8 pound walleyes all night long.
It's a good time. Yeah.
So much fun. So much fun. I did that when I lived up at Wordsmith Air Force Base too. When the smelt would run, we'd be out there casting for walleyes. I didn't care about the smelt. I wanted to catch the monster walleyes that were feeding.
For sure. There would when we would duck hunt on Lake St. Clair, they would if we had a hard west wind in the fall, we'd hit the canals. My buddy lived on a canal, and we'd hit that canal and just pull a bait through there, and you'd catch really monster walleyes through there when we were doing that too.
That's so much fun. So much fun. And I called my dad. My dad never believed me when I made a phone call like this. I said, Dad, I rented a boat today, and I went out into Lake St. Clair. I didn't know where I was going. I just found the edges of a weed bed, and it was in May, and I started casting a rattle trap. This is before Lake St. Clair cleaned up too, but it was still dingy.
Yes.
And man, I told him, Dad, I was bringing in a smallmouth bass, and there were 4 smallmouth bass chasing it. He didn't believe me. He said, if you don't have pictures, I was on Lake St. Clair in a 14-foot line with a 25 horse, and the wind was whipping, and I didn't even bring a camera. I don't eat smallmouth bass, so I'm not bringing them home.
Right.
I think a lot of people who've never experienced this just can't understand how next level the Great Lakes are when it comes to smallmouth bass.
And years ago, a good friend of mine actually He was the proponent for bringing the 14-inch fish size limit here in Michigan, which made a huge difference. His name was Ron Spittler, great guy. And he's done so many things for Southeast Michigan, for the fishermen. And I say that because he was a fisherman. And he rubbed a couple noses wrong maybe, but it was always in the interest of the fishermen when he did things. And a lot of people didn't like it when he was able to get that changed to 14-inch. But look at the size smallmouth that we have here. It's just phenomenal. Before, when you had a limit of 3-pounders, you'd win a tournament. Now you're talking 4 and 5 pounders in order to win a tournament up here. And they're here.
And that's probably even on some of the inland lakes too now, isn't it?
As far as the size limit, yes. But our largemouth fishing is just phenomenal. You just can't beat it. We'll have a night tournament where, it's going to take you 12, 13 pounds to win a 3-hour tournament, for crying out loud, on some of these lakes that we have here.
Wow. A 3-hour tournament.
Yes.
Yep. Wow. But that doesn't surprise me, because I fish some of those lakes, and lakes like Diamond Lake and Templain Lake. But also I'm remembering back in the early 80s, so there weren't as many fishermen back then.
No. You have a few more now, for sure. Yeah. Especially even since COVID, it's picked up significantly. There's a lot more perch fishermen, and which is good.
So perch, is that a big thing in Lake Sinclair?
It is, especially in the fall. Spring of the year, not so much. I mean, they ice fishing has always been good here.
Yes, that's what I remember catching perch in Lake Sinclair, through the ice. In fact, I could walk right out of my front door when I was living on base at Selfridge, go through a hole in the fence and be ice fishing in 5 minutes.
Yep. And it's surprising you can catch smallmouth during that time too. There's some monster, especially in the area where you're talking about, over by the base.
Oh yeah, there's a riprap shoreline in the springtime. One time I started casting that rattle trap, and I mean, every cast, it seemed like the fish were getting bigger every cast as the sun was going down. Then the sun went down and I started catching walleyes. I'm like, this is one of the best days I'm ever going to have. I was right. Fishing isn't always that good.
Yeah.
Not even on Lake Sinclair. They were just in because it was spring, and there were big, it must have been a big school of them right there.
Yeah.
But just one of those magical nights. Everybody gets one. That's what got us, in this addiction.
I was never, I always walleye fished with my dad. Pounded the river, with the hand line, and moved out to Oakland County. And I loved bluegills, my favorite fish actually to eat. And I was bluegill fishing one day, and my rod went over this. I'm reel it in. It was a bass. I go, oh my God, this was a lot of fun bringing that in. And then, like you said, it's an addiction now. So, for the past 50 years, I've been bass fishing, for crying out loud.
And that's what I say. The first shot of heroin is always free. That's why we get those magical moments when we were young, where you caught fish, it was easy.
Yeah.
And now we have expensive boats and expensive electronics and expensive rods and really cool rods and reels and like you have an entire wall in your house of lures. Why don't you show us that a little bit?
Well, I can move out of the way.
Sure.
This is just part of it. It actually goes out to the side here and back over here. And then I have a rod rack. I can't take the laptop with me, but I have a rod rack.
No, that's okay. But we get the idea.
It has 30 Grant rods in it. So
30 Grant rods.
yeah.
That's a beautiful thing right there. That's a beautiful thing. 30 Grant rods all in the same place at the same time.
Love them. It made a difference in my fishing. I mean, I've told this story time and time again. Fished with Brian Ballavander, and
Sure.
I was a rep for Shimano, and he's kicking my butt. I can't believe it. He says it's a light bite, and I said I can't feel it. So he says, "Here, try this," and he was on a Grant Rod staff already, and it was instantaneous. It was like, oh my God, it's like lightning going through your arm. I explained to people when they just even sniff that thing and set the hook, and I became a believer that day. I'll tell you.
That's one thing I couldn't believe when I was up north and I was using a leash for walleyes with my Cuda EXT, and I pulled it back and I felt something grab onto it, and I pulled ever so slightly, and I felt that fish, it was a walleye, and I felt his teeth ripping the flesh of that leech. And I'm like, that's wow.
That's what makes the difference. Like I
This
said,
didn't happen.
when
Remember
you're
when we were young and we would go up to Canada or someplace, or you would go river chugging.
if you're not, like when you're doing a crankbait, if you're not feeling the tops of the weeds, or even a swim bait, you can fish that on the bottom, but there's times where you just want to bring it through the tops of the weeds. And if you're not feeling the weeds, you're not going to catch the fish. They're not even going to look at it. So you got to be able to distinguish the swim bait, the action of the swim bait, and when you're hitting the weeds. You don't want to be choked in the weeds. You just want to hit the tops.
My favorite way to fish for bass is wacky rigging. People like to tell me it's easy. I'm like, yeah, catching a 12 inchers, that is easy. That's really easy. They're going to inhale it, and you have all kinds of time to set the hook.
Yeah.
But a big old 6-pounder, it's going to pull that thing in. It's going to feel that prick of the hook. It's going to spit it immediately.
Exactly.
That's why when they do this, it sucks that thing in, and you got to be able to feel that move. So the angler's part of that is you have to have positive control of that.
Exactly.
You have to have so little slack in your line that you can either see it move or you can feel it move, and you got to be able to set the hook. So your equipment, you have to be using superior line that has better sensitivity. You have to have a superior rod. Finesse fishing is not as easy as people like to think it is.
No, if you want to be successful, absolutely not. You want to use a good braided line with a good fluorocarbon leader, and it's one of the best ways. I feel, and there's times where I'll go straight fluorocarbon, depending on what type of fishing I'm doing, but very rare.
Down here, I like, since it's all shallow water, it's all stained. I like to either tie direct to braid, or just use mono. Now, when I'm using mono, I'm not going to use something like this. I'm going to use a little beefier rod.
That'd be your Cuda.
Yeah. I like to use a little beefier rod because I want to use 10-pound mono, or maybe even more sometimes, because I want to be able to pull that bass. If I think there are big bass, now if there's 12 inches around, a medium action is just a medium light or medium action is just fine with 6-pound test. But I have hooked into monsters even on my Cuda EXT and not been able to bring it in because it got tangled in the weeds and the coontails and stuff that we have down here.
And they'll strip themselves right off the hook. Yeah.
That's what has happened. I can actually feel it.
Yep.
I can feel it going right through. I'm like, I'm not going to get this fish in. And I was fishing with a guy who's a tackle company owner. He says, keep pumping him, man. Get him out of those weeds. Get him out of those weeds. If you break the line, that's fine. At least you tried.
Yeah.
And then ding, my hook came flying up, Oh, well. But I'm still telling a story so it upset me. I hadn't hooked into a giant in so many years. I catch a lot of fish down here, but the places that I target they're wiped out by hurricanes every several years, and it's hard to grow an 8-pounder like that,
Right. Up here, and here it's the same thing. We have a short season, before they go on to sort of like a non-feeding mode. And so it takes a long time for those fish to get that big, so
It
you
does.
want to put those big fish back, take a picture, get the measurements, and you can have a replica made for it and put that fish back in the water. So, it's good brood stock that way.
It's just so different down in the deep South like I'm at. There's the amount of fish down here is just staggering. I can't believe it. You see pictures of guys who the limit's 10 bass per day, and they keep 10 bass per day, and some of them are 4-pounders. And
wow.
and but there's so many bass. I've talked to biologists, and like there's so many bass in that body of water, just so many bass. We got to get some of them out of there because there's just not as many alligators as there used to be. There's not as many alligator gars there used to be.
Mm.
And if you don't do some kind of control on that population, you're only going to have 12 inches.
Yeah. Well, you talk about being, extra careful and taking care of your fish, especially like for tournaments. One thing that we've come up with for Cash for Bass, especially on Lake Sinclair and inland lakes, we have a recovery tank. One, because, with the St. Clair River, it's not uncommon to catch fish in 30, 40 feet of water in St. Clair.
Sure.
So we take care of, we have a special tent, a special recovery tank with fresh water being pumped in, and we fizz the fish. We would rather the guys fizz their own fish, but some guys are, they're not accustomed to that, and we don't want to damage the fish, so we'll fizz the fish for them before we put them back and let them live for another day.
One thing I'm seeing more and more tournaments go with, like the tournament that Bob Masacomer, the Team Fishing Challenge, is he calls it live release, but actually it's it's more of the kayak paradigm where you take a picture, you send that picture into an app, and then the judges can score the fish right then,
mm-hmm.
and you release it. So it's released, I'm going to call it real time.
Right.
Because the kayak paradigm, that's how you have to do it.
Yeah.
And it's just another, I know most guys really like bringing in their 5, and there's nothing wrong with that. I don't have any problem with that either. But it's just a new idea that's probably coming of age if it hasn't already.
Yeah, it's a different, obviously the type of tournaments that we do would be very difficult to do, because it's a team tournament. Actually, sure. There's 2 men to a tournament, and so maybe down the road, I don't know. I guess it'd be something that we'd have to discuss. Well, but, it's not for everybody.
And the 5 fish live weigh-ins is, in my not so humble opinion, is never going to go away.
Mm-hmm.
Never going to go away. But this is just the new thing that's coming up. And I'm not opposed to it. I'm not opposed to it because I'm just not.
Mm-hmm.
Particularly during spawning season, when you catch the fish, you weigh it, you put it back right then, and it can go right back to its own bed.
Yeah, and actually, our open season here on Lake St. Clair doesn't open up until the 3rd weekend in June. So so they have time to spawn.
That's so awesome.
Yeah, and it's just it's better for the fish.
Sure.
And I'm sorry, it's the 2nd week of June, 3rd week in Canada.
Okay.
But it's better for the fish. Let them go through their life cycle and let them continue to prosper that way.
Yes. And like I said, I want to be very careful with what I just said, that I am not opposed at all to the 5 fish weigh-in of tournaments. I love watching that. That's nothing more exciting than watching that, having guys hold up their fish like that. It's just so exciting. But also I'm not opposed to the sending in pictures. There's all kinds of ways you can prevent cheating with that.
That's a possibility.
But I'm not trying to tell you to change your tournaments by any stretch of the imagination.
No, I don't think we will.
Yeah. But I just wanted to let you know that. I enjoy watching the footage, and it's, man, on a Saturday morning when I can't go fishing, you better believe I have the BASS channel on.
Yep. I at least tape it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Frank, do you have any shout outs you'd like to do? Any thank yous to organizations, people, companies, of course?
Well, actually, another tube company is Area 51. Is
Okay.
another tube company that I like using. Terry, the owner, he's it's a phenomenal tube that it's really exciting to use. It's a lot different than some of the other tubes, just the way he has them made. And Triton boats.
Nice. I had a Triton. I had a walleye boat. I loved it. 200 horse, 19-footer, can go 60. Whoa.
Yeah.
So cool.
Can't say enough for DNR Sports. That's Kevin Van Dam's brother, owns DNR Sports in Kalamazoo. Sure. Great people to work with. Just phenomenal. And, they have a number of different brands that they sell. But, they were the ones that hooked me up in the Triton that I have. And it's a phenomenal boat. It's the 22 TRX, which is fantastic.
22?
Yep.
Wow. What do you have on the back of that bad boy?
250 Merc on it.
Okay.
Optimax.
Nice.
Yeah. And it's and they also have a lot of tackle there too. Kevin's heavy into promoting his brother's lures and things like that at DNR Sports. And they have a lot of the equipment that you'd need here for Lake Sinclair too.
Sure.
And there's another company that we like using for the inland lake, and that is the Bait Shop, and it's in Waterford, Michigan, and he really caters to the inland lake fishermen. As far as having the right tackle for what you'd need for these inland lakes up here.
Wow, that is great. Gee. And of course, Grant Rods.
And Grant Rods, obviously.
We talked about them a lot, though, so I get it.
Yeah, but like I said, the quality, it's not just a fishing rod. If people would go to the website and see the quality that he puts in, some of his rods have real snake skins on them.
Wow.
And real feathers, and for somebody and that's all Jim, for somebody to go through that way of decorating, or I call it decorating, but it embellishes it quite a bit, but it's just phenomenal. And I'll tell you, he's got a great line of fly rods too.
He sure does.
Yeah, just as I'm thinking here, he actually makes them for a guide in Scotland.
Yes,
some of his rod blanks. So it's a guy that loves to fish, and he understands everything there is about fishing, whether it's saltwater or freshwater. He does it all, and you can tell by the quality and the craftsmanship that he puts in his equipment.
He sure does.
And with a lifetime warranty, how can you beat it?
How can you not get one of these?
And and it doesn't matter how it breaks. Well, he'll replace it.
Sure does. I appreciate everything Jim does for the fishing industry.
Yeah,
he's also he gives back to the industry as well.
Yes, he does. He does a lot. For the state of Illinois, that's where he's out of.
Arlington Heights, yes.
Yeah, and he does so much for the local groups and that, and and for the state of Illinois. And no, he's a great guy. It's not just it's a business for him, but it's pride too that he has in what he does.
Exactly. Well, hey, Frank, I'd like to thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come talk to our viewers here on the Let's Talk Fishing podcast.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity, Jay. It's great, and love doing your show.
Well, thank you. I do apologize for the dogs, guys. Boy,
Is what it is.
It's just distracting. I do apologize for that, Frank, too.
No worries.
But anyways, yeah, I'd like to thank everybody for tuning in to the Let's Talk Fishing podcast. You know what, guys? Have fun this weekend.
And go fishing. Enjoy.